Well, I don't know about you, but I found that really, really, really useful. There's a lot of points that I've kind of picked up on things to think about when we're planning sales meetings, client meetings, etc. Particularly the sort of, and it was picked up in Peter's and Mike's presentations yesterday, sort of really getting to know your client, understanding what it is that makes them buy. We think we know it all as salespeople. I know how many meeting rooms I've got. We know how many hotels there are in our city. We know how many bars, restaurants. We know how to sell features versus benefits. We know all of that. But do we actually understand what our clients want? What's going to make them buy from us rather than another city? And as luck would have it, we have some clients here with us today. So we're very, very lucky to have 4 clients who've agreed to come and join our panel and answer what I hope will be a lot of questions that we have for them. So if I could please ask James Caldwell, Verity Baker, Chelsea Thomas and Alexandra Merlier to come up to the stage. So I will just give a brief, what I was going to do is just give a very brief introduction on everyone and then ask them to give you a brief introduction themselves on who they are, what they do, and then essentially open the floor to any questions. So if we start off with Verity Baker, it's nice to finally meet you and put a face to a name. Verity manages the UK Stroke Forum, which is a partnership of over 30 organisations committed to improving stroke care in the UK. They run 2 annual conferences, and I know I've been recently involved in a bid process to run the World Stroke Congress, so it'll be very interesting to get some insights from you. Then we have Chelsea Thomas and Alexandra Merlier, who are both from the European Society of Cardiology. But interesting, I think, certainly from a salesperson's point of view, we've got 2 sides of the coin, really, in that we've got Chelsea, who's the Congress account manager, and Alexandra, who's the Congress production manager. So if I'm right, Chelsea, you're sort of more responsible to managing your clients and the board's expectations, whereas Alexandra is looking at the logistics and the reality of running an event there. And it's how can we combine those 2 sides? And then finally, we have James Caldwell from Innovate Conference Services, who's also worked for a number of other organisations such as Sheffield Wednesday FC, Expertel and Marketing Manchester, and has also been involved in some large events, including the Olympics and the Labour Party conferences. So welcome to you all. So if you could all start by just giving a little bit more information on your roles within the organisation, where you've held events, cities you've worked in, venues we've worked in, and then we can open up the floor to any questions. So who wants to start? James, thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for the introduction. As was mentioned, I am one half the ownership of Innovate Conference Services. Innovate is a middle ground between events management company and a full service PCO. We kind of sit in the middle of where those 2 kind of companies lie. We work with large scale international and national associations on their overall aspects of their event, very much on a project management level. I suppose relevant to today, one of the major things we look at is destination selection for conferences. So we've got events from Melbourne to Toronto, although obviously we do have a large base here in the UK of events. And they range from clients such as the World Nuclear Association to national events such as the British Cardiovascular Society.
Thank you. Verity?
Yeah, so I actually work for the Stroke Association, and they're the only charity that is UK-wide that's involved in alleviating the impact of stroke. So we run services for stroke survivors, we fund research into stroke, and we campaign for change and for more funding for stroke care. And we run the Stroke Forum, which, as Samantha said, is a coalition of 30 organisations involved in stroke care and committed to improving stroke care. So that's everything from emergency care right through to therapy and sort of return to work, long-term services. So there's a lot of people involved in that. We run 2 events a year. We run a 3-day conference, which is at the moment is at Harrogate International Centre, and we run a 1-day conference, a smaller one in Belfast. And we also do a lot of work around quality assessing stroke care. So any events, courses that are stroke specific for stroke care professionals, we are involved in quality assessing that as well. I'm quite I'm moving away from some of the logistical actual event planning work now, and a lot of my role is about relationship management, relationship strengthening. As you can imagine, with a coalition of 30, there's a lot of different interests to manage and people to support. And I also involved in kind of building relationships with providers, with venues, with cities as well.
Thank you.
Chelsea, again, thank you, Samantha, for the invitation and the introduction. Alexandra and I work for the European Society of Cardiology. I am a Congress account manager and one of 3 who manage more or less, we'll say, 8 subspecialty congresses. You've got even years, let's say 8, and in odd years, no, even years you have 7, in odd years you have 8. The congresses that I manage are Euroheart Care, one in nuclear cardiology and cardiac CT, one in prevention, and acute cardiac care. So in terms of Congress account management, I work more with the development of certain strategies, trying to talk to the clients and involving more, we'll say, young researchers, trying to create a more recycling type of manner, whereas meetings get old and tiring. They don't want to hear the same senior people. They don't want to hear the same old people that come to talk. That it's almost like it's Groundhog Day for cardiologists. How can you start bringing people up into the ranks? How can you start adding more people, making it better, making the meeting more interesting? So by doing things that also are cheap. The thing is, budgets are now the key word. How can you make something done that is very cost efficient? So working on strategies, working on how overall we can really develop relationship with the clients, making them be more interesting to a broader audience. And again, also understanding that the meeting world sometimes are shrinking. So how can you just make yours be more important amongst the, we'll say, the cardiology population? So again, saying that my 3 colleagues, I manage those 3 to 4. We have another colleague who does the 1 annual congress, which is for general cardiology, which has around 35,000 people. The other ones can go from 500 to 5,000.
Thank you. And Alexandre?
Okay, so I am Alexander. So you will see that I'm not a native English speaker. Actually, I'm French and I've got a strong French accent, so I'm sorry for this. So I'm working close collaboration with Chelsea. She's on my left, actually. So she's really linked to the committees, to the cardiologists, and all of these scientists. Regarding me, I'm more linked to all the venues, logistic partners, and also the on-site teams that we're going to have in our company. As Chelsea said already, we've got 7 or 8 congresses per year, between 500 and 5,000 delegates. Actually, my role is to define where we can make this kind of each congress. Actually, to give some advice to Chelsea like this. She can give some good advice to the committee, and then these guys gonna choose where they want to go. Actually, and we really hope that every time they follow our advices. And then actually I work closely with all the venues, and I'm specialized more by venues than by Congress. Yeah, I mean by this, I would be specialized for Berlin, for Amsterdam, for Rome, for Sevilla, maybe Birmingham, I don't know, but and not linked to the content actually, but really regarding the logistical aspect and everything. And we try to follow the budget that we receive from the committees. And also we try to achieve all the challenges that we are facing in terms of logistic, technology, and everything, such as communication, marketing. Voilà.
And also something I forgot was Barcelona, Brussels, Amsterdam, Dublin,
Okay.
Stockholm, Copenhagen, Istanbul.
Everywhere in Europe, essentially. Brilliant. Well, thank you all very much. I think one thing that struck me just listening to everyone there is the fact that we're here with you as clients trying to find out how we can sell to you and how, what we can do for that. But actually, we need to give you the tools to then help you sell on to your clients, to the committees, to the other people within your organisation. So actually, you in a way, you're kind of performing a sales role as well, because you're taking the information that we're giving you and having to then convince a board, a committee, the 30 member, to pull together. So actually, you've got both sides. So from our point of view, it's really interesting to see what we can do to kind of sell to you, but also how we can then help you sell to the people that you need and sell that on. So does anyone have any questions they'd like to ask?
I don't want anything from Aberdeen. Okay?
Me neither.
No, well, if I'd start off maybe then, I suppose because I had to think about this and been talking to some of my colleagues at Excel and just some of the things that we wanted to ask. And the first one, I think, from our point of view, there's been a lot of conversation, a lot of discussion from John and from Pete about being face-to-face, getting in front of the client, getting to, understand you. What do we need to do to make you find the time to see us, to actually get an appointment with you? How can we do that? So have I moved something?
Who's that? Which
To anyone.
Do you want me to start? And,
Yeah.
A point before on the kind of the sales site visit sides was the kind of hearing we'd like people to come into the venue, to come and see our venue first. A site visit of a venue is a full day affair. It takes a day out of the diary. For ourselves, my team especially, we don't have a day to spare to kind of wreck out a venue unless we're completely confident that it could take place within that venue. I think from a purely time perspective, we always prefer to meet venue suppliers in our own office, on our own turf, for that first get-together. Because to be quite blunt, there's no point going seeing the venue until it's logistically, it's budgetary possible. Otherwise, it's just a waste of a day on all parts. So I think it's really important that before we do the full site visit and going out and seeing the venue, we need to know, could this even happen? Is it even possible? And I think we very much like people to come in to the office, come in and meet with our clients as well. It only needs to be an hour, half an hour for that conversation of, can the event logistically take place within that venue, or are there certain aspects that would just prevent a certain type of event taking place there?
Okay, thank you. Verity?
As I work in the back of beyond of Worcestershire, I don't often ask people to come all that way to see me because it is a bit of a backwater. I go to quite a few events, so I go to things like Congress and that type of setup, and I've found the kind of tools that are used to set up meetings at that event. So I think it was Connect, wasn't it, at Congress? Or that kind of, come and see us, we really want to meet you while you're here, let us talk to you. I think that really works for me. I find it quite difficult to, if a client was to come to me, you're talking about a venue, talking about a city, I find it quite hard to see whether there's potential for that venue for our events if without going there.
Exactly.
So although it is a big commitment and it was really difficult to fit in, I think that site visits are a really useful way of getting to working through all the issues, and it's just about when you can fit them in and when you can make the time to do that. But I think that's if cities can offer that and we can fit it in, that's the best way to take discussions forward, I found personally.
Thank you. Chelsea?
Ironically, sometimes we're the ones that ask to go. I know that there have been occasions where an old client or a co-sponsor is organising. We'll take the case in Birmingham a couple of years back. One of my co-organisers for a conference I manage was hosting their annual event. I'd never gone to their meeting, so I thought we'll kill two birds with one stone. We'll go meet them, go visit the venue. So I think for us, it's also just to increase our portfolio and to see other places without necessarily taking too much out of our day. Because again, I've not gone to Birmingham just because it might be a long shot for the future. It's because I actually had a reason to go. I was looking to investigate what this Congress was doing to manage their event, which we'd never seen before. Also, again, it's because our clients tell us what they want to know. So we're the ones that call the cities and say, can you give us more information about what you're going to be offering, what you're going to be proposing budget-wise? That makes it much easier for us then to dissect it, break it apart, and then show the client just what they can have.
Me, I will say actually that I totally agree with you, that you need to have people coming to your office actually to present their venues, their city and everything. Actually, I also agree that you need to take some site visit, but I also found doing EIBTM or other fair like this, that's very useful actually when you can meet a lot of people of several venues that you have targeted before you go to the meeting actually. And this is really useful and very interesting actually. And generally people also know that you're gonna meet them. So like this, they prepared already. Sometimes some venues, some cities, they prepared already some offers. Not really. I'm not talking about budget, but I'm talking about tailor-made offer for some of our congresses. In which they already come to us and tell us, okay, if you plan to make your congress in our city, I can tell you that for these 3 congress you can make this like that, and this is already something nice actually. And once we know the potential venues actually, and we are quite lucky because we've got a lot of potential venues coming to us actually asking us if this is possible to have a congress in their city. This is very nice, but in the other end, this is very complicated to see exactly what we can do with them actually, because when you've got a lot of quantity actually, I'm not sure about the quality, so sometimes we really like to target only 1 or 2 cities, or maybe up to 5, you know, and some of the times it can go up to 10, 15, but that's really a matter about how they will present us the city, the Congress Center, and obviously if they ask to come to our office, we will be happy to welcome them. But once again, as Chelsea said, we've got a lot of requests, and this is complicated to find the right time and for this. But we are really aware that we have to know as much as possible number of venues.
I think that's just sort of to pick up on that. It's obviously, I think we all know, you know, time is precious. So for you to either come out or for us to come and see you, that is a big commitment on everyone's part. So I suppose it's getting to that stage where actually we feel that there's a reason to do that for either us, for you to spend an hour for us coming to see you, or you coming actually over to see a venue or a city. So I suppose follow up, but what sort of communication do you like beforehand? I mean, what can we send you or give you that will give you the confidence, say for example, that logistically the venue would work for you, so it is worth your while coming over? I mean, how can we get you to see that without coming over to see it in the first place?
Cakes, lots of cake.
Okay, that's a good one.
we do take cakes.
Right,
as
okay, we'll remember that one.
Anyone who's been to our office would guess that quite easily. I think it's contextual. I think obviously there's a lot of experiential marketing. There's a lot of events going on at the moment. I think what's quite difficult is, again, you talk about, you know, there is a lot of experiential events going out there, come and meet us, come into a drinks reception, etc. IMEX is a great event. It's one of those events where it's thoroughly worth your time, and an invitation to meet at IMEX gives you that ability to say, right, okay, well, it's 2 days I'm going to commit to that event, and I can commit a certain amount of time. And again, looking around things like IMEXs and Confexes and the meeting shows, and when we will be around an event, potentially doing things sort of before, after, especially if the event is taking place in the city where we're actually looking at, it's quite good to try and tie that in together. So I suppose as a marketing strategy, events like IMEX, I found are kind of best because we're already there, we're already committed to the event. Therefore, it's not much more of a commitment to say, yes, I will give you a half an hour appointment whilst at IMEX.
Yeah. Okay.
I think one thing that always works is much better than getting a generic email about, well, this is who we are and what we do. If you've had it's really easy to find out things about my event. So you could go on my website, you can see the program, you can see that we have 5 sessions running at a time. You know, if you just tailor that email to say, so we've had a look at your program, we see you need 5 rooms, or we've got these 5 rooms and we've got these capacities, and we think that they would work really well for your event. And we've got a great exhibition venue, which it kind of fits with the size of your exhibition. So just, I think, tailoring communications is just a little bit is really useful. And I think once you've had that initial conversation via email, or perhaps at IMEX or one of the other big events, you can get a sense of what that person does. So you can get a sense quite quickly that I travel around a lot. I work for a national charity. I'm here, there, and everywhere. So you could approach me and say, are you in the southwest, or the southeast, or the northwest anytime soon? If you're in the region, we'd really like to have a chat, and we could come to wherever you are. So it's just kind of seeing what would fit, I suppose.
So again, research, looking into what events we're managing, looking into the time scale, knowing that we might have one that is always going into areas that are very, well, so we say Anglo-Saxon or English-speaking or bilingual. Would it be Stockholm? Would it be Copenhagen? Would it be UK, Dublin? Those are type of places, like one of our clients, their delegates, the vast majority of them speak English or a small fraction can speak other languages. So they are almost forced to go to English-speaking locations. Knowing that, you're already positioning yourself that you know more, you can offer more, and that you already have something that you can offer the delegates that other cities, we'll say in the Mediterranean basin, can do. Relationships. How can you be more personable? I think that Mike, has been mentioned already, that being more human, showing more of that funny side, showing more of what you can do, having a different approach to us. It's not very cold, not very standard type letter template. Dear Chelsea, this is what we can do. So how about make it something different? Because those are the types of things that over a while really do help to work. And, you know, some of us, we travel around, we see different faces, we work with people, we come back, you might, oh, hey, how are you? That's a type of stuff that really works afterward. And I think that really helps also, because you do one Congress somewhere, and then you go somewhere else and you say, I had a fabulous time, very good people, but it passes on, and then you pass it on to other clients who then pass it on to other people. So it's almost getting your foot in the door. It could be just with a simple introduction. It could be with a simple, hey, would you like a drink? And afterward, then you can see. And of course, with your emails, you can't offer drinks, but you can also just try and see how you deliver a different approach.
But is emails the right way though? Do you?
It could be a
obviously
phone.
you must get hundreds of emails.
You know, the thing is though, I'm obsessive compulsive. I read them. I read my mails before I go to work. That way, you know, even the spam is deleted before I plug in the computer and open it. That way, I have nothing to do, because no one's going to write to me between my trip to the home to work. Before I go to bed, I close it. But it's okay. You can email me.
Alexandra, have you got anything to add?
Yeah, I will be simple actually, because when I'm taking some examples of venues that I did have the opportunity to meet, and the first introductions, that sometimes the bad experience that I have, well, this is something personal, but I hate have brochures. You know, this is my desk is empty, almost everything is empty. I've got almost everything on my into my laptop, but I really hate to have brochures. I really like, and I think that everyone knows. Now as a USB stick to present the venues, you know, and this is much more easier, and like this you can make backups also to share the information with your colleagues, because in our process of destination selection, actually, I can make the first study on this, you know, but then I might have to transfer the file to someone else who will be really in charge of the file actually. So this is really something that the transfer, the ways that we cross the information actually, this is something really important. On the other hand, I really like when people know their file actually. I hate when I'm meeting some convention bureaus, and I will not give any name actually, but when they are just telling you the city is perfect for your congress, and then you start to ask, okay, just tell me where I can make my congress. And I'm taking one congress, for instance, Europrevent or Acute or Euroeco. And they say, you can make this into this congress center. I say, okay, just give me some figures about this venue. Sorry, I don't know. I'm sorry, but if you want, I can give you the contact of this person. And when you start like this, you know, this is just something. I said, okay, for this city, I don't want to go there anymore, actually. And so when this is something, it can be, it can look like stupid actually to say that people have to know their file actually, but this is really something kind of obvious actually, because it happens a lot of times actually, and obviously not in UK. It's more like in other countries. But now really the way that we receive the information and the way the person know what we do and what we're going to do in terms of congress, in terms of logistics, this is really something important. Without this, I don't think we can move forward actually, or we can, but unfortunately we might not have time for this.
Thank you. Has anyone else got any questions? Karen? Sorry.
I have a question. Client or customer relationship management, CRM. When an event books in your venue, I'm from Liverpool and it's 5 years away, you don't say, great, we'll see you in 5 years, okay? What are good examples of customer relationship management over a period of time when the venue isn't being used or the destinations are being used?
That would be something that I would work with with my clients instead of Alex, because Alex would know, he would of course be cooking in the back, he'd be making the sauce, but I'd be developing more the long term, which would be with the client, with yourselves, what type of strategy? Could we work on some type of grant that the city would offer young scientists? Could we work on, and again, Kathleen can raise her hand, any type of prevention roadshow, because we work in cardiology and our motto is to reduce the burden of cardiovascular disease. Could we do something for the public to make it look like Liverpool cares about cardiovascular disease, and so does the ESC? A lot of times, it's, you can work on taxes, so it can be very tax beneficial for the city to do something. So that would be something that we would be talking about, creating, and then I'd be feeding back to the clients. So yes, it could take place in 5 years' time, but then when you really do the official introduction to where we're going, it's already in place, nice and neat. And then in terms of promotion, all of our publications, it's just fantastic. So I think even for us, in the long term, we'd prefer to investigate venues, sign somebody, and I know where I'm going for most places until 2017 or 18. And that means that I am currently developing what we can do for future congresses. And again, it's because, you can't do this overnight. Yes, some cities are able to overnight work on something, which for us would be in a year's time. But it really does take a lot of investigation because it's, logistics, suppliers. And we know you're working with public workers. In the French, you call them the fonctionnaires. You can't get them to do anything like that because, what was it, Mike, you said? That's not my responsibility. We live in France. That's what they say all the time. So you have to make sure that people know, how they can work. Pardon?
Are those two synonymous? I live in France and it's not my responsibility.
Yes. I'm American.
Cannot agree actually with this. Sorry. But I'm not responsible for actually.
It's my husband's fault.
From my point of view, I think it's good for you to communicate to the client. Okay, so we're 5 years away from the event. What do you need from us this year? What do you need from us next year? And just kind of have a bit of a plan that so the client knows that you're thinking of them, even though it's kind of miles away.
I actually think that where I'm going as well is the person.
Yeah.
You might like Chardonnay, you might like champagne. Do we meet every 6 months in ourselves? And then talk about it. It's that personal relationship that gets us closer and closer to the goal and actually makes us firm friends beyond the conference. So that as well, I'm just interested.
I think, if you have kind of got to the stage where you've agreed with a client that they're going to come to the city, you must know quite a bit about them. So, be on the lookout for things that might be of interest and say, I saw this event, this event's coming up in Liverpool, thought you might be interested in it, can we support you coming? Or, this is going on, or, I'm going to this IMEX or whatever, can we catch up? Just that kind of, remembering. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it is really important to try and be kind of genuine within that sales process. I know it's very easy to say the hard work's done once the event's been confirmed in the venue. From a lot of our perspectives, there is more than one event we're working on. And if we feel that all the effort and all the work and all the relationship was just put in just to confirm that event, there was no genuine interest in the event or what we were trying to achieve with it, or even us as a person, it was simply about getting the sale, then that can come back as part of that CRM process, that it was just all about confirming the event. And now the event's in, great, we'll hand you over to an ops team, they'll look after your event. We have to feel there is a vested interest, either emotionally, either personally. These are our reputations as individuals on the line at the end of the day. If we are suggesting to a client or to our committees or to anyone, we think that this venue or this destination can hold it, that's our personal reputation on the line as an individual, and a lot of our industry is based on our reputation. Again, after the event's been confirmed, if we walk away from that thinking, well, not spoke to you in 3 years, was it just about getting the event in? And that was all that was interesting. There was no genuine relationship there. There was no genuine honesty about the fact that they were interested in the event. I think you still need to maintain that relationship, I suppose, from a sales point of view, because, like I said, we all work on more than one event most of the time. At the same point, you do have to be genuine in this industry, and you do have to kind of show that to people.
I think, to echo what James said, it's hard to work with somebody, develop a relationship, and then as soon as you sign, have the venue say, okay, so we're sending you over to person X because they're now going to take care of you. And it's almost like you feel like you were an adopted cat and you just got left at someone else's door because you had this fun and now it's gone. And now you have to just start Up again, so it's Sisyphistic because you've made it to the top of the hill, you've gotten the client to sign, and now you've rolled back down the hill because you have to start working again, introducing yourself, talking about. So that's also hard because there's no smooth transition from the person who's redone the sales pitch to the person who's taken over for the logistics side of management. So because we've now modified a bit the roles and responsibilities at our company, it's different now. Before it would be me working with the sales, then going to logistics, and now it might be Alexandre working more with those people. But it's still for us, it's not quite comfortable because you're out of your comfort zone and you're having to try and explain again who you are. And again, personality really makes the big difference with this type of work because we do tend to repeat. We go back to cities because we're comfortable, because we know that our clients are also comfortable, because again, it's a community where these doctors talk amongst themselves.
And by the way, as James said, actually, every time we are not talking about one specific event. Every time we are talking for us about 7 or 8 events that we can have, So I don't. Sometimes, even if I can understand this is long actually to have between. If a destination is not selected, then you have to wait for 4 years, maybe 5 years, but that's really rare. Even for the ESC Congress, we do not make 5 years actually. This is, I totally agree with you guys, because you really need to keep to have this relation actually, thanks to the meetings that we can have now, thanks to EIBTM, thanks to IMEX, thanks to if you come to visit us, or other opportunities actually. But this is really something that you need to keep actually in mind, and without this actually it's gonna be it's complicated actually to think about one destination, because when the cardiologists come to Chelsea and ask, okay, Chelsea, I want to make a congress in Germany or in UK or in Scotland or wherever, then Chelsea we'll have to think about potential venues. Then I will have to think also about other additional venues actually, and if we do not remember one specific person or one specific venue, we will never have that into our mind, and we will never think to put that name on our list actually. So this is really something important.
I think it's really important, and having that seamless, whether you're just sales then handing straight over to operations, or whether you're sales then handing over to planning then to operations, that your responsibility, I think, as a venue, to make sure that transition is really smooth, and that's it's key to your role, I think, as sales, to oversee that process.
I think that's really, actually, just because obviously being from a venue myself, and there are a number of us here, that the reality of it is that is how venues work. You have the sales roles, and as a salesperson, you kind of know that your sales hasn't stopped the minute the contract's signed, and it's just off your desk, you're moving on to the next one. But actually, it is to kind of hear you actually say that, just sort of undermine that actually it is slightly disconcerting. You've spent, in some instances when we're working on bids, we all know that you've been working on a bid for 3-4 years, you finally won it, the Congress is, and then you're going, right, often, here's someone else coming in, and that actually, operationally it makes sense because they're the experts in that field, but from your point of view, we've spent all this time building up this confidence, getting the relationship, and now suddenly you're bringing someone else into the mix. So that's certainly, I think, food for thought on all of us as to how we sort of manage that process and make sure that you're comfortable with all of that. So.
But even if you work on one file for one congress during 4 years, even if you do a great job during 3-4 years, just one detail can break the whole relation. Yeah. Believe me. This is really something once you've got a huge problem on site, and I'm not talking about small problems actually, but I'm talking about huge problems or huge issues that you will face a couple of weeks before the event or on site. But just this, can break everything, and then you can forget to have a congress anymore for the next 5 years actually. Yeah.
It just struck me as well, we've just had a series of very successful congresses, and without fail, in all of the feedback we got, the two things that were highlighted were the fact that it was still the same team there that had been there 4 or 5 years ago when we started the planning, starting the bidding, and the fact that everyone commented on the fact it wasn't just a professional, there was a friendship there was a genuine, and it reminds you how, as we've been hearing for the whole couple of days, it's about people, we're people, we trust people, we've got confidence, and it's sometimes easy when you've got sales targets and this and that to forget that actually it boils down to you and me talking to each other, and even if there is an issue, we can sort that out if we've got that relationship. So, perfect. Has anyone else got any questions? And if you could just, sorry, I forgot to say, if you could say who you are and where you're from. Kirsty, do you want to?
standout examples of either the initial approach or the proposal or something that a city or destination has done that you've gone, wow, that's made you go, I've really got to pay attention to that?
Can I do first?
So,
Amsterdam. I don't know if everybody knows Mark Horsmans. He had myself and François Durand. So François at the time was also organizing heart failure, a few other events. And he invited us over. And he knew, you know, via the portfolios that we were working on, what events were interested and what really had, it was a complete long shot to come to the city, and walks us around the town. And, you know, we're having a great day, we're having chats, we're laughing, and all of a sudden he just stops abruptly like he forgot something. And he turns, and behind him was a boat, and he said, if you have to tour Amsterdam, this is the best way to do it. So it was almost like jumping on a boat and visiting the city in a completely different sense. And I think it's, again, you know, changing just the perception, because you know that there's water, you know there are the canals, but you don't think you're ever going to visit maybe reception areas or faculty dinner areas or gala dinner locations. You don't think you're going to do it via that means. And it's just the romance of a client that's going to help you to say, okay, I've got to tell my client that Amsterdam could be. But then he also talks about, well, that there's this type of initiative for young scientists. We also have our ambassador program where, et cetera, et cetera. So it's all, again, the package. You know, children for Christmas in the morning, the biggest package, it might have something this small inside, but if it's got the ribbons, if it's got everything, it just really depends on, again, how you're presenting it and what type of wrapping it's going to have. And that could be with just the most coherent bid process, what you can do, what you're going to offer. But I think for us also, it's, again, just showing the research you've done, showing that you're really doing the summary and the bullet points. You don't have to just do dear this and dear that. Really, bullet points. This is what can be done. This is what's perfect. This is what's really brilliant and why it's going to help you so much for your client. For us, that's just so nice because you can take it home, you can look at it, and then you can just put it into an email and say to your client the same thing. You're not going to have to go from this page to then to the summary, to then to the terms and conditions, to then to this, to then to call the controller and say, do you think though for this, for the insurance and for cancellation fees, how about just first give us a summary? Because, you know, that's all the client wants. They don't even know about contracts. That's something that's going to be a good approach initially for some of us at least for, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think it's hard to say, you know, best practice and things like that. Every event is so different. I think you have to make sure you come across like that when you're approaching an event. Us as a company, we've got everything from trade unions to public sector to international associations. And the committee ownership, the event organisation, the whole logistics of each event is completely and utterly different. And there's nothing worse than getting the same information for 3 separate events. The same generic text, the same generic pictures. This is why we think this venue and this destination is great. It's nothing to do with the conference, it's just generic text. I'd rather see, and we are seeing this a lot more, shortened bid packs, shortened executive summaries, which are just a little bit more, well, lighter for a start, which is great, because we don't want to be up all night reading 50 bids at the end of the day. But more specific about the information that's relevant to the conference. And again, going back to, have you actually listened to what we said about this conference is trying to achieve? At the end of the day, the conference is trying to achieve something. It's trying to achieve an aim, an ambition. If it's medical related, it's towards research into that particular medical area. Your venue, whilst great, and it will be able to, you know, add a lot into that, but what more is there that can be done on that? What additional support, thinking outside of the box? We've seen a lot of clients buy into venues that maybe aren't logistically the greatest, that maybe would require a lot more work on the ground to make it happen, but they've felt like the venue really wanted the event and would push the boat out to make sure that that objective was met. So if they're pushing towards research into an area, even simple things such as city signage, pushing that research message across, going into local universities, introductions into the right people within a city to help promote that message, because that's the main thing about the event. It's got to be successful and it's got to meet its objective. If your venue can logistically do it, then that's going to be the kind of the key driver for us then, is how can you help us make this event successful, and what is it you can add in? Great that you've got 100 bars and restaurants and everything else. If we're going to a major city, we would expect that. Hotels, as long as it's logistically possible, that's great. but what can you tell us that we don't already know, that we wouldn't naturally expect within that bid process? And that's a bit more the information that we're seeing in some destinations coming out a lot more. I think we're seeing it across Europe a lot more with some of the major destinations such as Barcelona, Amsterdam, etc. That they're looking further into the event and saying, what is it you want to achieve with this event, and how can we use our connections within our city to help connect you up to make that happen? I think that goes a long way.
Yeah, definitely, I'd agree. Things around that added value, that legacy, that saying, well, what is there locally that's relevant to stroke, I think is really important.
Have you got an example though?
Liverpool. Do that kind of thing really well. The other thing that I think is really important is, you know, if you go and see a venue, meet with a venue, and, you know, I think a lot of the people here would say that they're really tied into the Convention Bureau, and, you know, that their destination is a destination. It's not a venue, it's not a city, it's the whole package. That is still really, you know, is really important, and, you know, don't ever underestimate how important that is. And there are still places that don't perhaps do that as well as they could, and there are places that do it fantastically, and that, I think, is really important. Be linked into all the people that need to make an event happen, and present yourselves together, you know, as a group, a package.
Actually, to reply to your question, this is a little bit complicated because, for instance, I did work for congresses from 500 to 33,000 delegates, actually. So this is not exactly the same. You can have some congresses, some congress center, smaller ones, can be perfect, you know, but you are not, you do not have the same. I mean by this that actually you cannot really compare. It's really complicated if you compare like the Messe Munich, actually. If you go there with a huge congress, mega medical congress, and if you go there with a smaller congress, this is not the same story. I mean, by exactly the same in Paris, in Stockholm, and in Barcelona, actually. So it's really related to the size. I would say, if you've got, for instance, if I have a congress of 1,500 delegates and I go to Berlin in a small congress center for 1,500 delegates, then I'm going to be happy for this, you know. And then, obviously, if you want an example, BCC in Berlin, these guys were just amazing. They were perfect, actually. Yeah. I spent 5 days doing the event to find a problem, actually. Couldn't find one. Every time I was going, do you have a problem? When my phone was ringing, I said, do you have a problem for me? Nothing, actually. It was amazing. Because these guys really, they really understood the way I worked, actually, and they follow exactly what I did ask to do, actually. And they also have a very good recommendation, good advice. They know perfectly their job, actually. And by working on the same way as me, actually, it was really helpful, and at the end it was a perfect event. But once again, this is complicated to say where this is the best and where this is the worst, actually, because every time it can change depending on the congress, actually.
Okay, Karen.
So I'm Karen. I'm from Congress. Everyone probably knows we're a professional conference organizer. And my question relates with regards to transparency. Most associations do financial outcomes for conferences are very, very important. And more we're finding that committees who are hosting conferences, or some of the associations themselves, are asking for financial models that are a little bit different. So they're looking for risk sharing, or looking for you to make guarantees on no losses and on profit expectations. And it's very difficult to do because you don't have all the intelligence about the conference when you're planning that. So there's an expectation from them that we are going to be very open and transparent about our fees and what they're going to be charged for. But it's how do we get clients to be open and transparent with us about previous performance of their conferences? Because this is something that we are finding very difficult to get disclosure on previous financial records from conferences.
I think it comes down to the individual. It comes down to the trust that you develop with that client. Unless you have that genuine trust from them, you're taking a lot of things at face value. I think as well within this industry, innovation doesn't come quickly in our industry. Our technology is sometimes a little bit behind the rest of the other industries out there at the moment. Video technology, hybrid technology. 10 years ago that came out, and we're only starting to integrate it now fully into events as we're seeing it. And that will be the same with transparency. That's been expected from large corporate organisations. That's not a problem. They have to keep those records, public sectors. Associations depends on that committee structure, depends on how well organised they are on the inside about that event. At the same time, if the event is not a financial profit-making event, which a lot of congresses aren't, they just don't keep that information to that level. It's more about just making sure the event hits budget. And that can change massively on venue, accommodation, tax prices, etc. I think unless you've got that genuine trust from a committee, it's very, very hard in an association to get that transparency, because they're just not always at that kind of situation that you'd see in a lot of big corporates nowadays.
I think it's right. I think it's about trust. And I think you have to think of ways around it. So, could you offer to sit, if you didn't, if the person didn't want to send you that information, could you sit down together and look through some things so you could get what you needed without having to have them send all their precious secret files to you? And I think it's just about, being really honest and saying, we need this to be able to give you the best possible information that is going to, inform your decision. We're not going to be able to do that if we don't have some of this information. So it's just about, putting across, we're trying to help you and get you the best info we can.
Trust again. And I think if you're working on an annual Congress, you're not going to have financial closure until, say, November, and the meeting could be in April. So how can you legitimately provide all of your files, not knowing quite what the end result's really going to be? We've really not encountered this so far. Sometimes the question has come up in terms of new destinations we're going to. Should we tell? But how do you tell it? For us, we are the in-house professional Congress organizers, so there's no one that's going to tell us to tell a city. How can you ask a Congress center to do something like that? And there's no convention bureau in the world who's going to say, sure, I'll take your debt. I think, again, it's with each event, it's hit or miss also. It could be with destination, it could be with VAT laws. You can go to places where, take Switzerland, for example, the VAT is incredibly low, but you're going to spend more for hotel accommodation, different types of aspects. You can go to other places where if you have very little industry-type funding, you're not going to have to be VAT registered. That means you get more funding. That means you're going to have a winning year. So every type of event is going to have such different type of specificities that it's almost difficult for us even to tell a client, you need to show the books. And we're also non-profit. The point is, we're not trying to rake in the lotto. We're really just trying to cover our costs and to make sure that the budget breaks even, or that there is a bit that the association can then invest in more educational opportunities for their association. So.
Brilliant. Thank you. I think we're kind of out of time. But I just wanted to finish just really briefly. If you could just give us one piece of advice in a short sentence, what would it be?
Shall I go first then? I think I'd mentioned it before, but I think you have to be genuine. At the end of the day, we are in a very small industry. We do bump into each other all the time, and I think there was a great point before in the presentation earlier about bad-mouthing your competition. It does happen a lot in our industry, and I will be honest and say it does look negatively on the person who's doing the bad-mouthing. At the end of the day, we are a small industry. We are meant to be professionals, but we do need to feel that you are genuinely interested in the event, not just on confirming the revenue into the venue. We have to feel there is a vested interest in you wanting that event to be successful.
Okay. Verity?
Yeah, I think, do some research, tailor your information to the event that you're trying to get. Be clear and open and transparent, try and give as much information about costs so we don't have to ask loads and loads of questions and unpick all that. Just give us all the information we need and tailor it to us, I think, would be my piece of advice.
Thank you.
Think outside of the box. I'm not ready to say no. I'd like to hear other types of ideas because that's what our clients also want. Try and be innovative, honest, friendly. I am. And I think also it's very much work on, it's relationships, seeing the same type of friendly faces. And, to me, I think it's when you're comfortable working with somebody, the client's going to also feel that you're very comfortable. And it kind of gives them a winning type of idea. Okay, that is a place to go. When you talk to your client and say, this is just fantastic, and they ask you why, well, I think that confidence is already beaming off of you because you've been convinced successfully to come to the destination.
Thank you.
Yeah, just would say, I totally agree. So once again, be genuine. Okay.
Don't worry, your English is much better than mine.
So be genuine. Actually, really, when we send IFPs, we really appreciate when people read the IFPs. We've got 12 criteria actually on this, and we really like when people are making offers tailor-made regarding what we send to them. Obviously, people have to be friendly. Keep friendly, and do not hesitate. You know, if you've got any question regarding the Congress, if you don't understand anything, instead of doing a wrong bid, actually just ask. You know, this is key. Be genuine, be friendly, and be honest. This is it.
Well, thank you all very, very much. I hope you all agree it's been extremely useful. Thank you so much for giving us your time. We really appreciate it. 10 minutes? 5? I'm being told you've got 5 minutes for a coffee break, and then we'll move back in for Oliver's presentation.